Now, if we have two T600s, they could look the same, but one could have the old R12 air conditioning system and the other the new R134A system. So how do we tell the difference? Both are colorless gases that we never really see. They do the same job. They do it more or less the same way. Do the differences really matter? Do they matter? Well, that's the main point of this section. R12 and R134A are different refrigerants. They do the same job, but they cannot be mixed, ever. They also cannot be substituted except when the entire R12 system is retrofitted to an R134A system. That means using separate test, recovery, recharging, and recycling for the two different systems. Let's take a look at the physical differences between R12 and R134A and see what's really changed. R12 is a CFC, or chlorofluorocarbon. R134A is a HFC, or hydrofluorocarbon. The R134A molecule is smaller than the R12 molecule. That means we've had to change the design of the hoses and the fittings so the R134A molecules don't slip out through the walls of the hose or through gaps in fittings. That also means that cleanliness is going to be a bigger issue with the R134A system. A tiny piece of dirt in a fitting can easily cause a major leak or block the smaller orifice or opening of the expansion valve. If we look at how R134A works in the system, we can expect to see a wider range of gauge readings on the high side of the system. That means that R12 will not work in an R134A system, or the other way around, nor will a mixture of the two work. In fact, some research has shown that mixing the two refrigerants can create a combination in the system that acts completely different than the individual refrigerants. The system will not operate correctly with a mixture. Now, the design of the condenser and expansion valve are different too, although they may look similar, and there are some practical differences that you'll notice between the R12 and the R134A systems. The condenser has been completely redesigned, making it more efficient and smaller. That means that the airflow across the condenser will be more important on an R134A system. Leaves and bugs in the condenser or poor fan operation will make a bigger difference. In both types of system, the compressor is lubricated with an oil that actually circulates with the refrigerant through the entire air conditioning system. The lubricant in the R12 system was mineral oil based. The R134A system lubricant is either a glycol-based PAG oil or the ester-based POE oil. Kenworth has chosen to use the PAG, or polyalkylene glycol lubricant. Using R134A with the PAG lubricant has four important consequences. First, the mineral oil in an R12 system will not mix with the R134A. In the R134A system, the mineral oil floats around in little globs that settle in low spots within the system. Second, never mix PAG and POE lubricants, nor should you even mix brands. There are different additives that may not work well with each other. Third, chlorine in R12 breaks down the PAG oil in the R134A system. That's another important reason to use separate service equipment for R12 and R134A systems. And fourth, the PAG oil tends to draw moisture out of the air even faster than the mineral oil for R12. Moisture forms acids that will corrode the system, so never leave PAG oil in an unsealed container. Notice that the container sizes are much smaller. The potential for absorbing water will also make evacuation time even more important with the R134A systems. Also, even though you recover the oil when you recover the R134A, never reuse the PAG oil. It'll be contaminated with water and acids. And finally, PAG oil can cause skin irritation and ruin painted surfaces. So be sure and wear rubber gloves when working with it, and never get any on the truck finish. So what are the physical differences that we'll see on the truck? Well, a good place to check is always on the vehicle identification sticker on the radiator. The label will clearly state R134A for the air conditioning system. Another good place to check is the compressor. The compressor has two places that will identify the system. First, there will be a sky blue plastic tag on the suction port of the compressor. Second, the lubricant used in the compressor will be printed on the compressor nameplate. If POE or PAG is listed, it'll be an R134A system. Should always double-check the compressor nameplate whenever you're servicing a system to prevent accidentally mixing PHE and POE oils. An important difference can be found on the service ports. There'll be a different-sized fitting on the service valves. R12 service valve fittings will not fit on an R134A system, and vice versa. Another way to quickly tell an R134A system is by the hoses. R134A hoses will have a SAE J2064 stamped on them. Also on our Kenworths, the male-female fittings on the receiver dryer will be reversed. The fittings are reversed to make it hard to accidentally place an R12 dryer on an R134A system. Now, the desiccant in an R12 dryer will generally not work in an R134A system unless it's specifically XH7 or XH9 desiccant. Also, a slight word of caution. The last few trucks that were manufactured with R12 systems may have R134A hoses, so always double check. And don't forget, the sight glass may be covered. The grill denser has been replaced in the R134A systems by a more efficient condenser unit mounted in front of the charge air cooler. This unit offers a 30 to 40% increase in efficiency over the R12 systems. You should also be aware that the amount of charge for an R134A system is less than for an R12 system, and the R134A system is much more sensitive to overcharging. And there are some small things that could make a very big difference to the system's operation. Buna and some black neoprene O-rings will react with the PHE and POE lubricants. Using them will quickly lead to a major leak. HNBR O-rings, tinted green, are specifically made for use with R134A systems. Always use the green O-rings. Well, those are the major differences between an R12 system and an R134A system. The change to R134A will eliminate a major source of fluorocarbon pollution that is harming the ozone layer. But that doesn't mean that we can discharge 134A into the air either. R134A will not harm the ozone layer, but it is a greenhouse gas that may be responsible for global warming. So we have to treat it the same way as we treat R12, by recovering it from the system and then recycling or reclaiming it. As far as safety is concerned, R12 and R134A have many points in common. R134A will freeze any surface it comes in contact with, so always wear gloves and wear safety goggles when working with R134A. And wear rubber gloves when working with lubricants. Although R134A won't form a poison gas when it comes into contact with heat, it can cause heart irregularities if inhaled at high concentrations, so always work in an area with plenty of ventilation. The containers of R134A are treated like any other pressurized gas. Don't store them near a heat source or fill them beyond their rated capacity. And the convention developing for R134A is sky blue backgrounds on containers, equipment, and labels. But one important warning. Although R134A won't burn at normal pressures, it may explode under pressure when it's mixed with air. So never pressurize an R134A system with anything except R134A itself. You can't use shop air, you can't use dry nitrogen during leak testing. And that's it for the video part of Module 2. Now go on and read Module 2 in your workbook, and feel free to review the tape before you take the test for Module 2.